Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. Yeah, just nod your head with it. So explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it. No scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool. Hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones. Bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on ucy.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Really happy to be back alive and well on this Wednesday, September 20th, 2017, live. Didn't do the show Monday because I was actually in Mexico and got some friends and family visiting, and went down and spent the weekend down in some cool little neighborhood down in Mexico and did the whole expat mini vacation thing. Good times, but God, there is a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, on the non-political front, on the political front, the foreign policy front, a lot of things going on. So we're going to just kind of start smashing into this stuff because we missed last show, so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of ground to cover. And now that the summer's ending, I'm going to be getting back into a much more regular schedule here, because I just try to take as much time to do fun things during the summer, because what else is there to live for, really? We're living in a time of this crazy, corrupt, weird stuff happening, political phenomena that we haven't seen happen for a long time, and just every day is something to cherish, every minute. So I've missed a few shows, but we're going to be getting back to a more regularly scheduled Monday and Wednesday show, and especially when major things happen. Of course, we're going to be on when some major shit goes down. We're going to be here, but if there's nothing going on at that time, maybe there won't be a show. But anyway, we'll be announcing our shows from now on. Long introduction, but let's get cracking on this. Let me introduce my longtime co-host and awesome partner to the Anti-Media Radio Show, DB Schwartz. What's up, dude? How you doing, man?
Not too bad, brother. Just kind of watching some historic events happen. I don't know if people are too aware of what's gone on in Puerto Rico, because it's not officially a state, and as not officially a state and not part of the United States, people tend to forget it. But 4 to 6 months without power in some communities spells a death sentence for the vulnerable, the elderly that are in hospitals are probably dying right now. There's probably kids right now that are possibly dying and drowning, and it's going to change the country as we know it. And if ever there was a good reason for them to get federal help, it's now. So maybe, I don't know if attitudes will change, and I don't know if that's a good thing for them or not, but I know they need a lot of help. I know they need maybe somewhere in the area of $1 trillion to rebuild, which if you know their GDP, you know that's like 100 years or something stupid. So they need a lot of help to rebuild and a lot of investment. And there's no better time than now. If you have any kind of money, don't throw it to Red Cross. Actually find out what companies are building things down there and put your money into an REIT. There's nothing wrong with profiting off of helping people if you're actually helping them.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I just switched the story out on the antimedia.org to the main headline now is about what's going on in Puerto Rico. First of all, the whole entire, I don't know, it's not a state. Puerto Rico is a country, but it's a country that the United States has pretty much colonized, and we assert authority over it. But Puerto Rico is really its own country. It's not a state of the U.S. or anything. I guess technically you'd call it like a territory or something. But the whole island, according to the BBC, has no electricity now. The whole country is basically no electricity. And so this, as DB was mentioning, this is a very, very dire situation for the people that live there. I mean, I seriously can't imagine it. DB, I don't know. I think you were living here back when we had that little mini power outage here in Southern California, right? This was
and you remember that it was just that single line that some guy like crashed into. So once they figured out what it was, they were able to get out there and fix it within the day. But within like 4 hours of no power, people were trying to take advantage of it. And once that 8-hour mark hit, people started getting a little bit loony. And we're just dependent on electricity for entertainment. And, I don't know if Puerto Rico is quite as vulnerable to that, because I think the people there probably are, I think they can adapt more to a lifestyle where they can get by going back to cooking with propane and, I don't know, maybe playing soccer or I guess football in the corner for entertainment. They'll get by, I think, better than the normal average American community would. So, but it's a lesson, because if an EMP hits, natural or otherwise, then that's what happens. It takes, even with advanced factories, it takes a year or two to get back, because it takes a long time to spool that copper wire that all gets kind of fizzled out with an EMP. So EMP, hurricane, natural disaster, earthquake, it doesn't matter. Whatever knocks power out, knocks power out.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a really bad situation over there for the people. But at least a few people I've talked to are saying that, people in Puerto Rico are a little bit more, like you said, they can adapt a little quicker because they've dealt with this stuff before, and it is an island, and the people there know that, things could happen. Hurricanes go through that area, on a regular basis. This is one of the worst ones that hit them in a very long time, though. I think they're saying since the 30s they haven't experienced anything this strong. So, it definitely... They
were saying they have twice the population, which is the biggest problem because of the density.
Yeah. And now there's a bunch of infrastructure set up, which is, electrical and other grids that have been knocked out, and so people are going to be, the first day or two are going to be real nasty. Now,
like I said, Nick, this is the perfect place to make a test case. Please, U.S. people with money to invest to get these people off grid on these communities, get solar panels up. Solar panels are higher than the flood zone, so therefore they'd still have electricity theoretically. I mean, there's just plenty of good reasons why these low-level places should be off-grid anyway for safety.
Yeah. And so, I'm here in San Diego, California, and for my whole life so far, I've been relatively spoiled with not having any kind of major weather event. I mean, we've had pretty severe wildfires and stuff, but those stayed out east of the city, and they never really encroached in. We've had, some major rain, but never any really bad flooding. As I mentioned to DB, the big thing that we had here in Southern California was a power outage, and some guy made a mistake, and it one of the bottlenecking points where the electricity comes in into Southern California, had some kind of glitch or whatever, and they were able to fix it after, what was it, like 10 hours, 12 hours? I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was something like that.
But dude, like after a few hours, we've been through power outages. We've had power outages for a few hours, maybe through a night or whatever. But for the whole region, the whole Southern California region that go out of power, we're talking about San Diego County, Orange County, parts of the eastern edges, Riverside, Imperial counties. All these people lost power, and after several hours and finding out how big the power outage was, people really did start losing their shit, dude. And I was
Nick, where were you? Were you in Chula Vista?
Yeah, I was in Chula Vista when the power outage hit. And
did the PD lock your community down? Because I was in University City, and the PD took 2 cars and blocked freeway entrance off and on from like the 52 and the 805 and the 5, so you couldn't get on to Governor. So like the police department just preemptively shut down the neighborhood.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, we went out and we came back in, and they're like, "Do you have your ID?" And I showed it to them. They're like, "All right, you're good. You're in this zip code. Come on in."
Yeah, no, I didn't see. They didn't do that around here, but I kind of got a nice little crash course in being unprepared, because that morning I was actually running late for work, and I needed to put gas in my car. I was literally like right on empty. I had just enough to get to work, and so I was at work that day, and then the power went out while I was at work, and so I didn't, at the time I lived pretty far away from where I worked, probably like a 20-30 minute drive, where without being able to get gas at the gas station, I was basically stuck at work. I couldn't really go anywhere unless I was able to get gas from somebody. And so immediately, just with a little 10-hour power outage, I was already like hit right away with panic about like, holy shit, I'm not even going to be able to get home. And, what about the people I care about? Where are they stranded at? Are they stuck? Are they scared? Is something going on? I can only imagine, we're talking about an area, the area of Southern California. I can only imagine an entire country, more or less, getting knocked out. And not only that, we're talking about what I dealt with was 10 hours. In Puerto Rico, some of these people may be without power for months.
That's why they need generators and solar power right away, and only private investment can do that, I think.
Yeah, I think generators would really help them out. So what I'm going to try to do for Monday is get some, because we've already got some friends of the anti-media working on relief efforts for Puerto Rico and elsewhere in the Caribbean as well, because there's a bunch of little tiny there's basically in the Caribbean, there's a bunch of like micronations, and there's also several colonies of different, U.S. colonies, U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands. There's French, islands out there. I mean, there's the Europeans still have their colonies out there in the Caribbean for whatever reason. They want to keep holding on to those things. I'm sure there's a strategic, reason why they still have them.
Well, they still pay tax. That's one thing.
Yeah. So, we're going to have someone on. We're going to try to get someone on the radio Monday to kind of break down what's going on in Puerto Rico, help connect us with some like grassroots relief efforts where our dollars, if we can donate $1 or $2, will actually go further than giving it to like the Red Cross or one of these big organizations who got all this bureaucracy that we have to deal with and all that. There's people directly on the ground that could use the money, like, right, in hand, to get like hot food to people and stuff like that, and that's who we're going to try to connect with. And also Monday, we should have Jake Anderson in the house, so that should be pretty interesting. Haven't done a show with him in studio in a while. DB, man, when are we going to get you back in the studio?
I'll be there in 2 months.
Oh, there we have it. 2 months, we'll have DB back in. And the last time we had a big, huge presence in the studio, I actually got sick. You remember that? That was
Yeah, everybody got sick. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So we got all this stuff with these hurricanes. We don't really need to go into why they're happening, how they're happening. We've covered this kind of in depth in the last couple shows because this stuff is kind of a recurring issue. So, but let's move on because this is very interesting, and I don't know if we're looking at an increase in natural disasters or if this is just coincidence or if this is just normal and we're just, seeing it, getting it reported to us. But now there's like a bunch of earthquakes going off too, which are kind of coinciding with these hurricanes. In fact, Mexico got hit, I think it was like last week, Mexico got hit by a minor hurricane, and then like a day later it got hit with an earthquake off the coast of off the west coast there, and it caused a little tsunami, and there was a good bit of damage. And now Mexico has been hit again with an earthquake, this time closer to Mexico City, where it caused a lot of damage, over 200 deaths. There's actually like 4 different strong earthquakes today. One in New Zealand, well, in the past 24 hours, one in New Zealand, one off the coast of Fukushima. And then the most recent one, I think, was like somewhere in Indonesia or something. Like, we're seeing an increase in seismic activity. So, of course, as this stuff is coinciding with all this increase in...
And then ice shelves are breaking apart, and then what we're going to probably see is an enormously reactive winter. They're saying this winter will be just one of the decade winters where it'll be the world trying to balance and replenish itself in the poles. And of course, I'm up here, so we're going to plan on being killed up here with the way into the negative. So, it's cyclical. I don't think that human activity caused a warming cycle, but it accelerated something that was a natural and a prolonged process. And I don't think it helped us because it didn't give us enough time to prep. Like, people aren't ready for tomorrow there to be no cars, but that's kind of what is needed now, unless they release Tesla tech, which means free energy, and they're not going to do that. So, I mean, as a society, we kind of have a choice of either kind of going along with their plan, which is like everybody's going to lose their car and just have to take the bus and be one of these plebeian dorks, or we can like demand that this new technology is like just out. Like, we don't buy gas cars like anymore. We just only buy Teslas, and we all get solar panels and shit because that's like the only way to get around it.
Yeah, and so this a lot of these disasters are a good, example of why we should be pursuing more decentralized systems from the bottom up. And this isn't, if you've been listening to this show, this isn't a new theme here. I mean, we've been talking about decentralization on the show for a very long time, probably since the very beginning. In pushing through this message that the more self-reliant, or the closer that we could rely on our own community, or like localized infrastructures, localized businesses, localized power grids and communication networks and stuff, the more we can depend on decentralization on that front, the more personal freedom that we can express. Because if we're looking at the internet as a highly centralized system where the government can censor it, or the NSA can spy on it, or like in China where they have like a huge censorship firewall set up for all these websites. Like when someone I know went there and visit China, they tried to contact me. They couldn't even log into their regular email if it was Gmail, because it was blocked in China. So, right now we're still dealing with a system in this world of highly centralized infrastructure, right? Where our cars are relying on gas, on oil, which is, it takes a shitload of resources to mine or, to get from the earth. So that means that only huge ass companies can basically be the ones drilling for oil and stuff like that. We're relying on this centralized internet system where the damn NSA can tap everything and governments around the world can censor whatever they want. Our electric grids are still based on this old crappy, just highly centralized systems that are very vulnerable. I mean, look at what's going on right now in Puerto Rico. I mean, all you had to do is blow 100-mile-an-hour winds to knock over power lines and communication poles and stuff like that, and boom, the whole place is the whole country becomes kind of immobilized in that way. So they like. There has been very little content. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's very little content coming out of Puerto Rico right now. Like, you're not seeing very many live videos. You're not seeing that much footage because...
Nothing out of Haiti, Nick. That's the scary...
What was that?
Have you noticed there's absolutely nothing out of Haiti?
Yeah. Did Haiti get hit as well?
Well, the Dominican got leveled, and they share that island of Hispaniola, so you can only imagine, because Haiti's got, at least Dominican Republic's got tourism money coming in, but Haiti's literally got nothing. They were even worse off after the last earthquake because the Clinton Foundation came in and just gutted their economy. So, dude, I honestly, I can't even imagine. If the Dominican got flooded, I think Haiti got flattened.
Damn, dude. I haven't heard anything from Haiti. I have a good friend that works out of Haiti, but he's not there right now. He's actually in the Caribbean doing relief efforts. I was thinking of inviting him on the show for Monday. We'll see if we'll get him on. I kind of doubt he will because he's literally out there with his bare hands right now working. He's in... I think he's actually on Puerto Rico right now on at a hotel. He took shelter at the airport at a hotel. And
I hope I'm wrong then. Otherwise, I hope he can get back home then, because I just can't imagine Dominican getting hit and then Haiti being not hit.
Yeah, that would be catastrophic. But yeah, dude. This is an issue that doesn't have to be so severe. If we're already embracing decentralized, infrastructure systems, we wouldn't. Maybe Puerto Rico would lose, maybe 20-30% of the population would have lost power instead of 100% of it. And then we wouldn't be dealing with such a really bad situation. Now, to make matters worse, Puerto Rico's already dealing with this kind of really nasty debt crisis too, where they already kind of are out of money. So it's going to be the only option that is going to be presented here for Puerto Rico is going to be a big time bailout. And that, knowing how these things tend to work, what we're probably going to see is kind of like a Greece type of Cyprus type of situation, where you end up with like a semi-privatized bailout where Goldman Sachs and them end up going in and saying, okay, we're going to bail you out, but the leverage is going to be all of this government property, all this infrastructure. And so what we're going to see now is when Puerto Rico, maybe what we're going to see, and I hope this isn't the case, but when Puerto Rico's rebuilt, I wouldn't be surprised if these big banks owned up all the infrastructure that's rebuilt down there, or at least have it leveraged on loans that are going to go belly up. So, this is going to be a real life kind of example of the stuff that we've been talking about, because, me and DB have been kind of talking about similar things happening. I didn't imagine it happening like this in Puerto Rico. I imagined it being something more of a civil unrest type of inspired event, but this is pretty much the same thing. Can people rebuild in a better way, or are we going to see it get worse? Where, like I said, Goldman Sachs privatized all their stuff, and the people get jacked even further, and they're even worse off.
I guess the question is, can Puerto Rico grow enough food if the people cooperate to feed themselves to make it through the winter coming up? Which I know it's tropical, but still, I mean, I don't know how much food supply they have. I don't know if their ports are okay so they can get food in. I mean, it becomes a problem with a lot of people if they can't grow. So I don't know. I think parts of the U.S. would do way better off than others, and would even be okay, like some of the farm communities. So I don't know. Have you ever been to Puerto Rico? I always have a feeling it's just a huge like resort, and doesn't have like a huge farming influence or whatever.
I've never been there. But, one thing I do know, Puerto Rico is one of the bigger islands out there. Some of these micro islands, these micro nations out there are going to be in really, really bad shape. DB, I don't know if you read about some of these stories. I can't remember the name of the island nation now, but some of these islands only have, a few tens of thousands of residents, and they're actually entire countries. Some of these are countries with only, 50, 60,000 people, and it makes up the whole country. One little island or a few little islands. One of the stories I read about was that one of these islands were on the verge of a civil war because everything, all the infrastructure was knocked out, and so everybody was pretty much fighting over what was left, and there was hardly any people there to begin with. We're starting to see some really interesting things. I hate to say interesting. Because it's really sad what's playing out, but it's stuff that we've kind of been, talking about these scenarios for a few years. What if these things happen? When will they happen? Sometime soon they may happen, and we're starting to see them play out, not politically, but from a Mother Nature standpoint. And so it is pretty interesting to keep a close eye and watch what's going on over there. We've got a friend. I don't know if you are familiar with the guys from Storm Clouds Gathering. They started a permaculture compound out there in the Caribbean in one of these micronations, and they took a direct hit. They took a direct hit on the island of, I think it's called Dominica, and we still haven't heard from them. Nobody's heard from them. Their communications are probably knocked out. Hopefully they're alive. There was a report. I think I've read that there was at least 9 dead on the island so far reported, so I'm just, we're hoping that it's not them. But what we're seeing play out is kind of a similar situation that could also happen politically from like a failure of the grid or a breakdown of the supply chain, right? And so, what's happening in Puerto Rico and some of these other small islands is that their supply chains have pretty much been wiped out. So it's one of the big variables here is, like DB was saying, how are they actually going to eat? Because, you may not have a roof over your head. You may not have electricity, but at the very bare minimum, you still have to eat and drink water. Will Puerto Rico be able to maintain a supply chain? Is going to be a huge variable here, because on an island that size, you still need to have trucking and, basically shipping in some way or another. And if the power is completely out, you have to start wondering about how they're going to pump fuel into these trucks to ship food. Even if they have working farms, how are they going to ship it from the farm to the, to the consumer when the gas needs electricity to be pumped, and so this could be a major catastrophe. I mean, this we need to keep a real close eye on this, and hopefully the international community comes together on this one, because if we sit around waiting for like FEMA and shit, I mean, this is gonna. I have a feeling that this could make, what happened with New Orleans and stuff look tame. This could turn really bad. So we need to just do what we can for those guys out there in Puerto Rico, dude, because
it's tough, man, because it's just the seas are violent now, and the poles are getting wobbly, and some kind of celestial event's going to happen, whatever that is. I don't know. There's lots of theories about it, but there's obviously something extra planar going on. It's not just global warming or global climate change causing this. This is unprecedented events that have never been seen. They haven't even been written about except for thousands and thousands of years ago. So, when that happened, there was this massive thing called the Ice Age, and yes, civilizations can survive it, but the problem is the band of being able to grow food shrinks to around the new equator, and everything flips around, and the soil that's never been touched for thousands of years now thaws out, and it's super fertile. And every time this happens, the plants flourish, but like humans suffer because we don't do very well in extremes. Like, up here, we couldn't live without natural gas getting pumped in. It's not going to happen for the winter. I mean, we could, but we'd have to go back to wood burning, and you couldn't have millions of people up here. You could have maybe a couple 100,000. So, we're dependent on supply chains of non-renewables, or if they are renewable, they're completely monopolized, and that's no good for humanity. And that's basically the biggest problem we have right now, is we're controlled by energy monopolies. And if everybody had free or extremely subsidized and cheap energy, that would mean you'd have internet and information, and I mean, you'd have that paradigm shift that they don't want, which is why they're not going to allow it. I mean, we're going to have to fight for what we need.
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of I honestly think we're on the cusp of a decentralized revolution, dude. And it's not even going to be like, people like us who are doing it out of ideological reasons. As far as pushing this idea of decentralization. But people are going to start embracing this stuff from an economic standpoint. I think that's one of the big things that's driving Bitcoin right now, is people are starting to see it as like a whole new financial system that doesn't actually screw people over. It actually kind of hooks you up.
JP Morgan just bought 19,000 shares at once. I mean, that has to tell you a lot.
Crazy, right? After the CEO called it a fraud, they make a huge purchase for somebody. But yeah, dude, and so I don't think we're going to see this stuff come about. We didn't see the Industrial Revolution come about because of politics. I don't think. I think they came about out of economic things happening, and this is what's going to happen. I think with the decentralized revolution, which I think will be the next big economic thing, and it'll incorporate a bunch of new technologies that are coming out, like artificial intelligence, blockchain tech, digital currencies, clean energy, decentralized food systems like aquaponics, like all these high tech things that are coming out. That's going to be the future. And of course, I forgot the big elephant in the room too, 3D printing. That's a huge, huge factor here. All of these things are going to make it so that we can all kind of be living life much differently, economically speaking. I mean, another article we covered today on the website was about how there's a major shakeup continuing in the retail sector, with Toys R Us kind of leading the way. One of the biggest bankruptcies in U.S. history, Toys R Us leading the way. Bunch of other businesses are shutting down stores, but there's new stores being opened up, and there's a huge trend. DB, I don't know if you've been seeing this or not, but basically more of these type of boutique kind of nicer, higher end type stores are starting to get shut down, and they're replacing them with
Amazon's just killing them.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Of course, Amazon is taking up a lot of the market share.
Well, it's all of it. You just can't compete, man. I really don't go and buy things anymore, honestly. I don't.
Yeah. So, the whole thing is getting kind of switched around. And And it's only going to be a matter of time before even Amazon is going to get done away with, and then you're just going to start seeing peer-to-peer, direct, business to consumer, transactions and stuff like that, where you replace Amazon with technology that's kind of open source. Like, imagine if you have all the benefits of Amazon without having to pay Amazon, Amazon is basically one huge ass middleman, right? Amazon is a huge middleman, more or less. And of course, they're buying more and more of the bottom half of the production, buying out retailers and buying out manufacturers, I believe, is part of their strategy. But really, Amazon is a big middleman that gets in between consumers and workers, more or less. And that's the way technology is progressing here, where we're starting to see peer-to-peer decentralized technology. It's going to go from worker to consumer, and more often we're going to start seeing technology replacing executives, technology replacing businesses. I'm thinking like along the lines of like Etsy and companies like that, where you're starting to see people who make stuff directly connect with consumers who are buying the stuff they're making. Where you basically cut out the fact that you have to make something for a store, and then the store sells it, and then the guy who owns the store makes most of the money, and then what we're seeing is technology cutting out middlemen left and right. I think Amazon did that, but now Amazon will be next on the chopping block. They cut out the retail, brick and mortar people, but soon technology will start replacing middlemen, and then Amazon will be cut out of the equation as well. I think these things will start happening. We're on the verge of it. We're getting close to it. Now, the only thing that is standing in our way at this point is the fact that there's, first of all, obviously this crazy weather stuff happening, and I guess we're going to have to keep an eye on this and see if this is part of a trend that's about to get bad, worse, where we're going to see in the next 6 months more and more of these kind of accelerating events, or are we just seeing a quick spike and next year it'll be back to normal and there won't be a hurricane or a major hurricane that causes major damage next year? But if next year we see, oh shit, this year there's 6 major hurricanes that made landfall, then we're going to have to start getting very concerned about, the effects of the climate on our existence, more or less. The other
just can't fall into the trap of the carbon tax being enforced on us with the no alternative for personal transportation, because they're going to try to take that away, force everyone to take public transportation. And I know there's people listening right now that are like, well, public transportation is good for the environment. And it's really not. Those big buses and trains and stuff you see spewing huge amounts of ash into the air, or power plants that are developing the electricity with coal, those are not burning cleaner than gasoline-powered cars that have to meet smog standards. So that's a stupid, asinine notion. The real argument needs to be made that there's clean, free energy that could be had, but they're not going to release it if we don't demand it. And that would also end most of the wars. I mean, that would leave basically the rest of these wars to be ideological. And I really don't think you can get people to fight ideological wars anymore. Not really, not educated people at any rate. So they don't want this shift, and it would be a whole humanity shift. It would change everything. Like I said, it would eliminate most war, and therefore it would eliminate a lot of poverty, because we wouldn't have to spend so much on defense, and we could spend it into social programs that actually help people. I mean, it would change everything. There was a study done, Nick, I don't know if you know about this. It was after we lost the Vietnam War because of rules of engagement. And as stupid as it sounds, we napalmed because we were afraid to actually go and use the army to go fight the enemy. Like, we didn't want to suffer casualties. We took 65,000 deaths, and that was enough. So we lost, right? And they were like, well, what if all that money we just wasted, what if we just spent it again on the GI Bill? because as people know, after World War II, everybody went to college free, right? All these GIs went to college free. A lot of women served in the military. They went to college for free when they got back. So it changed the whole face of society. And if we'd had another reinvestment into education, even, like, imagine that, dude. So we have a $700 billion defense budget right now. If they took 10% of that, it sends everybody to college. If they took another 10% of that, it gives everybody free health care. And we'd still be spending $540 billion, which is what we spent, I think, during George W. So that seemed to be enough back then. I don't know why we need so much more now when we have less people in the military.
Yeah. And that's exactly the point I was going to bring up. Our first concern here is surviving natural disasters, weather events that appear to be increasing in frequency and intensity. Of course, we're going to have to wait and see if we start seeing a trend here. Secondly, is preventing a major, extremely huge war that could permanently alter the Earth, permanently damage the Earth, or harm the livability of the Earth. And I guess mainly I'm talking about nuclear exchanges between different countries. Preventing that is really what one of the things we have to focus on while we wait for this decentralized revolution to start happening. It's going to be happening over the next 10 years really strongly. If we can survive in that window of time and we start replacing, the way I see it is that technology will begin to replace politicians, technology will begin to replace executives, technology will begin to replace bureaucracies and that kind of thing, where everything becomes much more efficient, much more tailored for your individual life, where each human will be able to actually achieve their full potential, instead of being held down, whether it's through the state or whether it's just through people taking advantage or whatever. Technology is going to allow us to reach a full potential, but war could stop it. War could get in our way. And first of all, we'll go into Trump second. Congress approved $700 billion for the military spending in the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with that. $630 million more than what Trump actually wanted. And it was voted by the Senate 89-8 in favor. So Trump, the madman, the clown, the ridiculous, insensitive a-hole.
And did Maxine Waters vote against it, Nick?
No.
Because she called him out after saying he's insane for allowing the defense budget and then voted yes. I mean, can we have a more batty and incompetent person in charge of a very important district in California? That's scary stuff.
Crazy. Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders both voted against it. There were them and 6 others. But the majority, Democrat and Republican, all of these guys supporting giving Trump more or less a big giant blank check to wage war however he wants. And in fact, Rand Paul put in some kind of amendment that they voted on that would reduce Trump's power to spend it, the use of the authorization of the use of force. Rand Paul put the amendment in there, and the Congress, the Senate voted against it. So they could have said, okay, well, our hands are clean because we're giving Trump $700 billion to fight war, but we're pulling back some of his power, and he's got to ask us if he could use it. But no, they said, no, we're going to let Trump have all this power, and we're going to give him $700 billion to do whatever he wants with, more or less. And then tomorrow we're going to go back to saying, well, Trump is a madman. Trump is crazy. It's like, okay, guys, but you just gave him $700 billion to fight.
Just that vote means that only the 8 people that voted against it can say anything anymore. Like, seriously. You can't vote to up the military budget $70 billion, which just fixes all our problems. It really does.
Dude, I hate to be the canary in the coal mine here, but where in the hell is the resistance? Where are the Democrats, the grassroots Democrats who are out there marching for a bunch of lesser issues, in my opinion?
Well, Nick, I hate to say it, but the reason we have Planned Parenthood is because we don't have money to give people free health care like they deserve. Because why? Because we give all our money to the military that we don't need to.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, look, dude, you guys know I'm not one to be in favor of government-funded healthcare, government-funded college, and all that stuff. I think that stuff is better done.
Or just subsidize it, Nick. Just seriously, just give people like a voucher for 95% of their costs.
But, that being said, I would much rather see $700 billion get used to eradicate poverty, give homeless people houses, and to give everyone health care and give people college, which that money could probably afford to do all those things. Rather than seeing $700 billion used to go drop bombs in Yemen and arm the Saudis and try to overthrow the government of Syria and who knows what they're doing with it in Iraq and Afghanistan still. I would much rather see it be used on the domestic front, get people prepared for this, coming shift, this shift in economy that's coming, rather than going and bombing a bunch of countries around the world in futile. Because let's face it, these wars that these guys have going on, I mean, pretty soon they're going to declare victory in Syria, but only because the Syrian government has been kicking ISIS's ass, and the U.S. government, once ISIS is gone, they're going to say, look, guys, look what we did. We beat ISIS. And it's like, everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, Donald Trump beat ISIS just like he said he would. And then the reality of the situation is that the damn, Trump advisors have done nothing but get in the way of the defeat of ISIS in Syria. In fact, they've slowed it down quite a bit. So, it's just more and more of this same stuff that is just rehashed over and over, recycled again and again. They're just like, oh, we made a win in Syria, but now we got to send more troops into the Philippines, where ISIS is now, popping up, because we get to fight terror wherever in the hell we want. And again, Congress could have stopped that, and they could have, when Trump was going to say, okay, we're going to fight ISIS, let's say next time in the Philippines, they could have said, okay, Trump, you can't do that. You have to go through Congress to do that. But because they said, oh, let's just keep on giving him that,
Dude, they get a pass because they can just use like his inexperience.
What was that?
They get a pass. Like, the military planners get a pass by using his inexperience. Like, I'll tell you one thing about Trump. Trump's gonna do good with a lot of domestic job growth and such. He will, because it's been bottlenecked on purpose by globalists that hate us, and now they're being outed. And who we have in now is the military-industrial complex, like, naked for you to see. So you can actually see the real underbelly. They just came out from underneath, and they're like, they didn't like how things were being run, and they weren't willing to sacrifice the U.S. for whatever reason, probably because we're the biggest military ever. But what I'm trying to say is that you're seeing two factions that are basically fighting, and one faction, all they really have is the media. That's all they have. So all they do all day long is dog on Trump, and then when it comes time for them to actually, like, not approve things that he's pushing, but actually give even more money, they do the opposite. So they totally do the opposite of everything they say. The whole thing's a big circus. If you actually think they're against Trump, you're a fool. Trump is the new executive in charge of the corporation of the United States, and these people are all just puppets, dude. And it's just a big show. It really is.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing, dude. Like all these Democrats, like let's go back to that number. Where was it? What were we at? 89 to 8 voted in favor of the National Defense Authorization Act. $700 billion for Trump to do what he wants with overseas and basically bomb whoever the hell he wants. Most of those people on the Democratic side have been going for the last 6 months saying, oh, Trump is a madman. He can't be trusted. He can't be, we can't give him any authority. He, for all we know, he's a Russian puppet and all that. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, here's $700 billion to go do what you want with. It really does expose the bullshit, dude. And again, like you said, the media too. The media goes around acting like it's some check on Trump, that it's going to stop Trump from doing bad things and, going to put him in check and shine light on the darkness and, expose.
It's so much money, Nick. It's so much money what they've just increased.
Extra. I mean, it's extra for Trump. It's more than what he even asked for. $630 million extra. And the Washington Post, the New York Times, where are they at on this? Where are they at on this issue? I haven't seen anything on it. It's so sad.
Dude, they could care less.
One of the most frustrating things for me is that kind of the centrist kind of establishment media has, because Trump is so not politically correct, that they could attack him on a bunch of superficial issues. The mainstream media comes off as a check on Donald Trump, when in reality it's kind of like, oh, let's look at Donald Trump, what he said on Twitter today, and let's see how stupid he looks. And then when it's like, oh, there's this huge $700 billion bill that he can use to fight war all around the world for the next 12 months. Let's not even talk about that, and let's just pretend like it didn't happen, and let's ignore the fact that almost 90% of Congress voted, agreed on this bill. When does 90% of Congress agree on anything? You know what I mean? All these guys do is disagree on shit. So when they come together, 90% say, oh yeah, we're going to give Trump $700 billion. This should be a big, this should be big news. But it's like, let's talk about what he said on Twitter instead.
Well, dude, how many people are living in their car right now that are hating on Trump, that went out to these marches and supported Maxine Waters? You people need to wake up, dude. These people voted for Trump, with Trump. They're just saying that they're against him. They consider you basically human turds, is what it is. That's what it boils down to. They really couldn't care less about their constituents. If you didn't donate to them, you're worthless.
Yeah, and the thing is that, so you've got this centrist Democratic establishment, which I would include much of the media in with, the CNN and MSNBC. All of those guys kind of fall in with this group. Now people look at them as the check on Trump. And then at the same time, Trump has kind of hijacked the anti-media message of, the media is biased, the media is just corrupt, the media is just talking heads for corporations and all that kind of thing. The talking points that we had, these were our talking points for the past 4 years. Now Trump is marching out our talking points as if he's some kind of fighter against the media, as if he's actually fighting against corruption, when in reality these guys are just making drama over nonsense on Twitter. And then when it really counts, when we could have stopped this $700 billion war bill, which has a bunch of horrible stipulations in it, including indefinite detention of U.S. citizens without charge or trial. I mean, that's still intact. And authorization for Trump to go fight in any country that he wants without congressional approval, that could have been stopped had the media actually paid as much attention to it as it does to the mindless bullshit that they were always covering. So I just hope that soon. I know everybody's still wrapped up in the election thing. I mean, it's still unwinding. People that voted for Trump that didn't think they were going to vote for Trump are probably still realizing what's going on, like regretting their decision. People that thought that Hillary Clinton would have been any different are probably like, okay, well, maybe not. I mean, her approval rating is even lower than Trump's, which is insane, but it's true. So everybody, hopefully starts to realize, okay, they're all just playing us again because the media had lost so much trust. The people were starting to really distrust the media, and all of a sudden they come along and be like, oh, we're going to be the guys that put Trump in check. And a bunch of people are like, oh, yeah, CNN and Washington Post are so awesome and shit. It's like, dude, we've already been through this once. Like, do we have to really go do it again?
Where did they think they get these 17 intelligence agencies all believe that Russia was behind it? Like, and it's always WAPO or CNN breaking it. Always one of those two. So who owns who? Who owns what? Like people just do the very most basic research, can put two and two together. It's just sad, man. And people keep posting it like these are legitimate sources, and they're truly, truly not. They're like The Onion, but they're just trying to become serious,
Yeah. Very, very like, at least for sure, the Washington Post has very deep connections to the CIA and all that with their Amazon cloud computing contracts and all that stuff, and so
even if they have good stories, Nick, they've been caught so many times making up so much completely fake, stupid shit, and people post it out there and go, Trump's such a scumbag. He's colluding with the enemy. He's having secret negotiations with Russia, and they're wiretapping his phone. And I'm like, God, you're such an idiot. Like, even if that's true, then he's being illegally wiretapped, and it's prior to him being a president. So you're allowed to do whatever you want when you're a private citizen, you idiot. Like, don't you get that? He can do anything he wanted to do before he became president. So, I mean, God, it's just so stupid and pathetic.
Yeah, the whole Trump truther movement now. It's almost as bad as the whole we want to see Obama's birth certificate thing. It's become a sideshow that distracts people from bigger issues with Donald Trump. And again, back to this war powers. The executive branch isn't supposed to have these powers. That's why Rand Paul tried to put through this amendment that put a check on Donald Trump's ability to go just say, oh, ISIS exists in fucking Russia now, so we're going to go into Russia to fight ISIS. Like, that's literally what they can do at this point.
What if Russia helps us with North Korea? Then are they the boogeymen anymore? Or all of a sudden are they a help like they were in World War II when they helped us? Otherwise, we'd be speaking the Deutsch right now if it wasn't for them absorbing the whole freaking Eastern Front. So people need to learn history. I mean, Jesus.
Let's give some perspective. Everybody out there listening, like, you've seen what Trump has been doing with North Korea, and you've seen how everybody's just talking all kinds of shit, and tensions are really, really bad. If I was in Congress and I saw that, and I saw Donald Trump up there getting us on the verge of another war with North Korea, I would say, damn, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be giving him all this power where he can just decide whenever the hell he wants to attack a country and call him a terrorist. Maybe it'd be a good idea to say, you know what? Let's put some check on his power. Instead, all these people in Congress basically said, you know what? We endorse the way Donald Trump is dealing with North Korea. He's getting us close to a nuclear war, but whatever. We're fine with it. Here's $700 billion. Do with it as you please. That's literally what these guys just did. Democrats, Republicans, both sides of the aisle, dude. It's ridiculous.
Nick, it's so hypocritical because if you're a Democrat and you really want to help North Korean people, or even if you're a war hawk on the super right side and you're a Republican dyed in red and want to nuke North Korea, which you know is stupid, then you would still come to the middle ground, which is if we really cared about the people there, we would just airdrop a bunch of small arms in.
music for tuning in.
Yo.
Full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing. But call it a reality, cause there's no illusion.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.